Now, with that in mind, I would think that even if at some point down the road you were going on a very limited basis with people only staying here temporarily, so let folks come in, work a little while, go back. Even if you're going to do that, do you think that it's safe to do that while the door's still open? Because I have a problem with that, see? Let's say we do what the Senate wants. You create a new credential, really easy to obtain, no great proof required of this or that or the other thing. When you read the provisions of that bill, all it is just an enormous expansion of immigration and the creation of a new visa level that will make it easy as pie to either obtain an actual document by stepping across the border for 5 minutes or obtain one on a fraudulent basis that nobody will question. And we're supposed to let that sort of a document go out there floating around, come into existence, while we still have people coming in by the thousands and thousands and thousands every day across an open border. And we think it's going to decrease that flow, do we, when they know that it's going to be easy as pie once they get here to establish that they have the right to be here regardless? No, my friends, laws don't mean anything if you can't enforce them. So all we're doing is creating new opportunities for fraud. And I think the people who put the Senate bill together know that that's true. They know that that bill will be a recipe for an endless and expanding universe of uncontrolled entry into this country, and that's what they mean to foist on us. So it becomes crystal clear, doesn't it? At the moment, I believe there is only one safe course for our people. And that course is to tell all these folks, yes, we know there's this problem you guys created, but before we talk about that, shut the door. Before we talk about that, put the bolts back in place so we can control when it opens and when it's closed. Before we talk about that, do what is necessary to remedy the confessed incompetence that the President of the United States declared. We will not even discuss what they want for their ambition and their special interest until they have served the common good of the American people. They must secure the border or they will seal our fate, and we will not accept that. And that means that what needs to be done right now is really very simple. And it has nothing to do with all this expense. You don't need 700 and 800-page bills to deal with it either. They're telling us, oh, we can't do this and we can't do that. It's such a complex problem. And I'm thinking to myself, let me see, 9/11 occurred, and it practically, in government terms, didn't take them 2 minutes before they established the TSA, took over all these functions, and so forth. So one of the things that I believe, and this is just my personal view at the moment, I'm not sure it's shared by many people. In the shorter term, I think folks like Chris Simcox are right. We have got to stop shrinking from the problem and start putting on the border the manpower that's needed to deal with the situation. And not just to play games at it, because that border situation requires document checking. You're also dealing with dangerous people who are bringing in drugs and carrying all kinds of automatic weapons. We have dangers as well as immigrants. And when you've got immigrants, it might be a police problem, but when you've got dangers, that's a military problem. And I think this is one of the things we don't understand. What's the difference between a policeman and a soldier? A policeman defends the law. A soldier defends the country. See? Along our border, we have both challenges. There's the need to defend the laws and regulations we put in place with respect to entry, and there's the need to defend our country against some really dangerous people who mean to poison us with drugs or kill us with their terrorist intentions. There is therefore both a police and a military challenge. And you can't deal with them in separate boxes. That suggests to me, my friends, and I know it might be hard because we've had this long history where we pretend that we haven't had to secure our southern border. If you know the history of the 19th century, you and I both know that's not true. No, the need to secure our southern border actually took us all the way to Mexico City a couple of times, I think. Didn't it? Right, I remember that. Why has everybody else stopped reading that history? It's a lie to say we've had this wonderful open border we haven't had to defend. Occasionally we have had to defend it. Occasionally we had to do more than defend it. And we have got to defend it now. And that means we can no longer live with the comfortable delusions of the past. We need to develop a border guard that can meet the challenges of the present time and into the future. And that means that we've got to stop pretending that border police are enough. They are not. We need a force that is trained in both police and military techniques as they are applicable to our border, and we need it now. And it may be that you can't snap your fingers and get it, but I'll tell you, you don't get anything you don't start on. And so all these folks telling us we need to start issuing new documents that can be the basis for fraud before we start putting together the kind of force that can actually get this job done along the border, I don't understand them. Second, in order to help make it easier to do the job, I don't believe, by the way, that putting up some wall or various and assorted fence, even when we add our sophisticated technology, and then we'll flick a switch and automatically control the flow across the border. What nonsense. Things can't substitute for people. But you may have noticed that sometimes they can help people do their job. It's sometimes rather easier. We have a problem in our area where I live. There's a problem because there's a large herd of deer, and they come in and they eat up people's flowers and so forth and so on. Now, it may be very, very, very true that at any given moment you can't be sure that you're going to be able to do something about these deer. But you know what people have found? It can reduce the problem greatly if they put a fence up and discourage the deer a little bit. Now, if you put a fence up, and in addition to that, you put a professional force of people watching the fence who would go shoo the deer away every time they tried to come along, then you might even get better results. So it seems to me we need to stop acting like we can't. We have the technology and we have the resources to seal that border. We can put up the fences that are needed, not as the whole solution, but as part of the solution. We can put in place the border guard that's needed and develop the proper training and techniques to get the job done. And finally, we can encourage our leaders to stop their arrogant dismissal of the voluntarism of the American people. If there are thousands and tens of thousands of Americans willing to act as an auxiliary to put eyes on that border, I say more power to them. The government should work with them, not against them. It's about time. One of the things that I believe has been quite evident in their response to the Minutemen, I think it's the clearest sign from the president on down that they don't want to get this job done. See? I mean, when's the last time you've got a job to do? Some Americans show up. A lot of them, by the way, are people who had military backgrounds, police backgrounds, things like this, where they had training already and the discipline that's required. And they have exemplified this, by the way, in the results as they have gone about doing their business. They show up and they say, oh, we don't want, this is not one of those Clinton-style volunteer efforts where you got to get paid for your volunteer work. These are folks who are actually willing to give up their time and come try to help get the job done. Now, we are still living in the United States of America, right? We are still living in the country that was opened up by people on their own initiative, braving the dangers of the frontier, opening up the country and setting up the farms and doing what was necessary, putting themselves on the line in order to defend their community. That is our heritage, isn't it? I still believe so. Now, given that that's our heritage, if people step up in the spirit of that heritage and say, we want to join in, we want to help, we want to do so in a law-abiding and peaceful way, we'll provide the eyes and we'll let you know where we see the problems. If they tell us it's such a challenge to keep eyes on that border, why are they rejecting the help of good, well-intentioned Americans who want to lend their eyes to the effort? It's because they don't want to get the job done. See, when you turn away well-intentioned Americans who are volunteering to put themselves on the line to get a job done for America, then you've either gotten to the point where you arrogantly abandon the real understanding of self-government, or you don't want to get the job done. Because last time I looked, government of the people, by the people, for the people. That means the people are involved. Right? Now, I know that our leaders have a tendency to figure out, I did this, I did that, I did the other thing. They do this all the time, don't they? And something will happen in the community. You know, a library is built, a new school comes in, and so forth and so on. At the next election, they say, I did that, and I did this, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, your money paid for it, too. Okay?